Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Shuffle Music Reviews and Retrospectives from a Gracelessly Aging Millennial. My name's Keaton, and we are here with an album review. Been a little slower on these reviews than I want to be because of the war and everything. That's created a lot of work for me at the main gig. So a little slower on these reviews than I'd like to be. I have a few other reviews that I want to put out, which I'm sure I'll get to over the next week or so. But this one I thought I should do now. We're going to talk about Morrissey's new album, Makeup is a Lie. So this one comes 6 years after his previous studio album, which was 2020's I Am Not a Dog on a Chain. Morrissey is, of course, the former lead singer of the Smiths, and his solo career has been checkered with controversies stemming from his outspokenness on various issues, his militant vegetarianism, banning of meat at his shows, racist comments about Chinese people, calling them a subspecies for their lax animal cruelty regulations, but also his apparent defense of Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey amid the Me Too scandal. And most famously now, his support for far right anti immigrant movements, parties, and figures in Britain, including Tommy Robinson and the For Britain group led by anti Islam activist Anne Marie Waters. Now, this album mostly steers clear of controversial politics, mostly. And if we're judging it solely as a work of art and music, it is, I think, a mixed bag. Morrissey's voice sounds very good on this the whole way through. I think the production here is pretty strong for the most part. I think it's a good sounding record. I can't help but think of Scar from The Lion King when I hear Morrissey's voice now. You know, the first track, "Your Right Is Time," sounds like Be Prepared from The Lion King. Maybe that's because Morrissey has become sort of a villainous presence over the years. And so it just kind of sounds like Jeremy Irons in his singing voice now. That's what comes to mind. I picture Scar singing all these songs. But You're Right, It's Time is the opening track here. It's a good song. The first lines of the album are, "I want to move away from those who stare at screens all day. I want to speak up and not be trapped by censorship." So his misanthropy and his political dissidence sort of coming through in the first two lines on the album. Makeup is a Lie. That's track two. That's the title track. It's kind of this lament of artifice set to these kind of like flamenco guitar flourishes. It's fine. Nothing special. But then you have Notre-Dame, which is the most controversial song on the album, one that seems to suggest that the fire at the cathedral in France was an act of deliberate terrorism, even though, of course, there's no evidence that it was. He's been performing this song live for a few years now, and here you can see some stills from the live performances. This is back in 2023, where you see a video screen of the burning cathedral in the background. And the lyrics here are, Notre Dame, we know who tried to kill you. Notre Dame, we will not be silent, with some, I guess, woke people making the gesture to try and shut the white people up about the fact that, I guess, the Muslims burned the church down, even though there's no evidence of that. Here you have a pink-haired girl saying shh. Here you have a black guy saying shh. Pretty obvious what the message is here, except, of course, he would end up being somewhat silenced because the line in the finished album version, as you can see the lyrics here, goes, "Before investigations, they said there's nothing to see here," except in the live versions performed before the album release, screenshots of which, like I said, are right here. The line goes, "Before investigations, they said this is not terrorism." So he was much more direct in the live performances of this song than he was on the album cut. So he did kind of soften his stance, or perhaps silence himself, maybe even censor himself a little bit for the record version. So kind of all bark, no bite there when he says we will not be silent. Well, you were at least a little bit silenced. You thought it was appropriate to modify the lyrics to soften the statement a little bit. for the album version. So I would argue maybe that's lacking the courage of your convictions, at least a little bit. But one of the more lampoon tracks on here, aside from that one, of course, is the cover of Amazona, which is the Roxy Music song. I have mixed feelings about this cover, just as I have mixed feelings about the original song. I love the hook in that song. I love the guitar. Bang, 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 boom, 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 boom. It's such a great, catchy hook, and I love the way the lyrics kind of flow over that. But the problem with that song is that to me, the whole midsection of that song, the sort of psychedelic part with the guitar solo and stuff, is just a squandering of that hook. It's not that it's bad, it's just that belongs as its own song. To me, Amazona should be a 4 minute song, 3 minutes of which is just that guitar hook with the verse lyrics. To me, that song is kind of a waste. It has too many different parts, which also makes it an odd choice for a cover because all you can really do when you're covering that song is just perform it sort of from A to Z, all the different parts, which they do. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward recreation of that song without a lot of the spunk that the vocal in the original Roxy Music track has. To me, the cover songs that lend them, or I'm sorry, the songs that lend themselves best to covers are simpler, more straightforward songs. Like you take a song like All Along the Watchtower, the reason that's covered over and over again is because it's basically just three chords in a very standard verse chorus format, which really gives the artist who's covering it sort of room to reinvent it and make it their own, the way Jimi Hendrix obviously did. With this, it's just kind of an A to Z recreation that's really not as good as the original. I don't hate it because I don't hate the song. It's kind of an interesting song. But to me, it's kind of neither here nor there. Then you've got songs like Zoom Zoom, The Little Boy, the obligatory animal rights anthem on here with a kind of oddly juvenile lyrics. He wants to save the cats and the dogs and the bats and the frogs. It's like a children's song. It's like a nursery rhyme, kind of a bizarre track. Monsters of Pig Alley, the final track is pretty good. Headache is kind of an interesting song. The headache is a metaphorical stand-in for marriage and illness and death. Classically kind of snotty and cynical. I think Morrissey's disdain for people was really fun and cool on an album like The Queen is Dead, which is the 1986 Smiths classic, of course, because that cynicism and disdain was directed at the monarchy, which who doesn't want to take the piss out of the monarchy, right? But after 40 years, especially given all of the political baggage and sort of awkward controversies surrounding Morrissey's numerous hot takes, there's just not much goodwill out there for this guy at this point. And so, publications have tended to land in the midsection for this album. 2.5 stars seems to kind of be the consensus here because no one can honestly say the record is bad, but there's just not much incentive here to actively recommend it. And to me, 2.5 stars feels right, both for the reasons I just mentioned and also for the fact that there really isn't anything compelling enough to revisit here. Like, I listened to the album straight through, and then I did sort of a song by song sort of revisit, a flip through. Some I listened to again from beginning to end. Like, I think the opening track is pretty compelling. I think the vocal performance there is pretty good. And I stomached the Amazona cover for a second time. I just think that's kind of a quirky and interesting enough song to warrant a second listen. But, others you just kind of get the gist of and move on. And so, whereas with some artists, you're kind of inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt and bump a 2.5 up to a 3, like the Lucinda Williams album that I reviewed. She's built up enough goodwill over the years where, yeah, you'll give her an inch off the outside corner and bump it up to 3 stars. With Morrissey, if anything, you're inclined to err in the opposite direction. And so that's what most publications seem to be doing here. I totally get why, because while it's not bad, there's really not much here to recommend. And the fact that he has become, such a douche, quite frankly, over the years, just doesn't give you much reason to say, yeah, go out and listen to this one. This is where streaming is nice though, because if the only way to hear this album would be to like buy it and spend 10, 15, or even $20 on it, I'd say to definitely stay away. But if you could stream this one for free, maybe it's worth a listen, depending on your taste. Not a bad album. 2.5 stars feels right for Morrissey's Makeup is a Lie. Thanks, everybody, very much for watching. Please smash that subscribe button on the way out. Tell me what you thought of this one if you listened to it. And stay tuned. More reviews coming down the pike. We will see you next time.